Hello and welcome to the Alpha Software Demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I am pleased to be joined again by Dion McCormick, no relation, but certainly an Alpha expert in his own right. Now, if you have saw our webinar, I guess 2 weeks ago, you would have seen part one of this presentation that Dion has done, putting together a task manager application. I believe that's up on YouTube if you want to find that after today's session. But today he's going to be continuing on with that work. We're also here, of course, to answer questions, and you can type those questions into the chat window of the GoToWebinar control panel, or you can send them to us at guides, GUIDES, at alphasoftware.com. So let's begin. Hello, Dion. How's it going?
Yes, sir. Great. It's wonderful here in Davos at the conference. So just pipe it in there.
It really is. You know, I didn't get my invite this year, so I was going to try to gate crash.
You on it.
Oh, did you? So yeah. What happened? Okay.
I thought Al Gore was supposed to send that to you directly. I get confused. So
you know, it could have been when I was at my winter house. I think that's the problem.
That's true. Yes, in your sabbatical.
Well, let me go ahead and
thank you, everybody. Yes, let's go ahead and see. You should see my screen in a moment. So come on. There we go. A little lag time there. Anyway, Thank you everybody for joining us. We always love to have you join us, and we're here for you. This is really centered around the Alpha community, so I want to make sure that you get the most out of this, i.e. if you have questions about what I'm going through, feel free to jump into the Q&A section of the GoToWebinar control panel, put your questions in there. Dave will be keeping an eye on that. We'll try to get all questions answered. And then again, if you have topics that are beyond the subject for today, that's fine too. Get those in there. We really want to use that information and see what we can do. Sometimes we can do it, sometimes not, but we try our best to try and get your answers. And then last but not least, you can always email us at guides@alphasoftware.com. And that's a really effective way because that gives us heads up to actually go figure stuff out and then be ready to go versus off the cuff. So we tend to get a little better success rate on answers on that. So feel free. And also it leads to great content that we can present on our webinars. It kind of drives that content there. So this week, I'm going to continue talking about building a mobile task manager. It's a 3-part series. The first part was just kind of, initially setting up the list, etc. We'll kind of do a quick recap of that. Today is going to focus more about the user interface, building that, putting that together. And then the next follow-up will be around how to package and deliver that either through just a web address, or you can even use something like some other methodologies to get it out to your hands of your users with a lot of really neat capabilities. So we'll cover that next time around. Again, if you have any other questions about that stuff, let us know and we'll kind of put it on our list to cover. So we went over last time. Basically, we started from scratch. We did everything inside of Alpha. And that was really critical. We wanted to show you basically how you could really create an app, everything, without having to use any external tools. Now, you obviously can, and you're more than welcome to, but a lot of it is built into the Alpha platform to do it. And to talk about that, we use some key technologies. Really talk about that, we focused on the list control. Today, we're going to focus on presentations. So before I jump into that, I'm going to jump back over and open up our UX. This is where we stopped. And by the way, this was a whole bunch of questions I think we had on there. Let me go ahead and comment this out so it doesn't blow up. We had some JavaScript questions we went over at the end of our last there. But we created this basically list-based at fully operational product or application. And it was based on a SQLite database that we actually generated inside of this. And so it's a really simple database, very simple concept here, but we did everything in there using the database capabilities within it. Then we created a list control to do that. And the cool thing about the list control, if you're doing anything mobile, that's the heart of your application. Because the great thing about list control is it does a number of things at one time. One is it handles the interaction with your backend data source. And as you can see, we're using SQL, but there's many other types that you can use, even like calling APIs, custom data series, etc. And then we can work and focus on basically the layout of that. And also we can include the detail view, which really just creates a detail view form that allows us to then edit those records. And all of this is wired up. And if you get a chance, go back and if you haven't seen it, go run through that last webinar. Excuse me. And as you can see, basically we have a search portion up here. We have the list control here. Down below, as I click on things, it basically updates my detail form. You can actually edit this information, save it. Very important. If you notice, it's got this little orange caret over here. This already has offline enabled, meaning this save was done within the web browser, i.e. within this development environment, but it hasn't been persisted to the data set. Once you hit synchronize, it then compares it against the backend data set, applies it, does all that work. I didn't write any code for that. So it was very easy for me to put together a very simple application where I have a set of tasks. I can add new tasks. I can create, I can modify existing tasks. I can search for them. And all that came out of basically the genies for building the list control. And below this is all the logic, the code, etc., to manage the data when you're offline, synchronize it to the backend database, wherever that happens to be, and also update the user interface and do from there. So that was really the focus of our last time, was kind of building our base structure here. And what's nice too is by using the built-in Genie, you can then start saying, well, I don't need this feature, etc. The list control can be somewhat daunting in terms of just the sheer number of information, selections, settings. I mean, this thing can do amazing amount of things, which is good because it gives you really fine-tuned control over the behavior of application. You can add and remove stuff. You can handle it. It's really, really powerful there. But often when you're starting, it becomes a little confusing. So when you do build your first list control, you can use what's called the list control Genie, have it build all these pieces for you, just kind of because it's like a fraction of the settings that you're selecting. Then once you have it up and running, you can come in and start checking it out, make modifications, do changes, etc., to make everything work the way you want to do from there. So today what I want to do is I want to take this somewhat quote unquote ugly interface, because it's pure functional, it doesn't actually have in there, and transform this into a mobile oriented face of the application, because the goal really will want to be on a mobile device. And be able to see it from that standpoint here. In fact, if I just go here and click mobile up here, just to show you, I haven't made any changes to this here. I click mobile, and then I go into working preview. You will see in a moment that it will attempt to lay this out on a mobile to show you what it looks here. And it is responsive. I mean, you can see it kind of squeeze this down. It made this list kind of fit here. I can actually scroll down here, and here's my editing form. Everything works, so I can go in here and modify this. No difference. So I can save it, and then it's got the highlighting and everything else, and I can synchronize it, handles all those pieces there. But you can see it's really just not very pretty, but it does work. By the way, you can actually up here look at this UX in different formats. So maybe we can use like iPhone 6 Plus vertical. And you can see what it would look on there, a little bigger screen. We actually need to add a few more. We're a few years, a few generations out there. But also you can see horizontal too, and see what it looks like.
7 generations to be exact. Although
yeah, I know.
Actually, what
but
we're
the
gonna
reality
do,
is,
yeah,
yes,
they're all about the same now. So we're gonna have
yeah,
basically like small, medium, and large for that and for the iPad stuff. So I happen to have
yeah, I think that's the way to go.
developing. Exactly.
Because again, you know, the 14 and the 4, you know, there's only two sizes, 14, 14 Max, and etc.
Yeah.
Oh well, anyway, so what we want to do is, this is okay, but we really want to create a very nice looking interface here. So before I do that, I want to take a little step back and talk about the magic of what we're going to be able to use to make this happen. And what that is panel card technology, which has been around. It's panel technology that was introduced a long time ago to handle mobile interfaces by the Alpha team. And what's great is it works awesome. And what's neat about this, and this is very important, even though we're talking about mobile today, there are a lot of uses on regular desktop web to create very dynamic, interesting interfaces, things with slide out panels and having multiple panels on one time. And it really is super powerful, and I really enjoy using it. And once you get to know panel cards, navigators, layouts, you will be able to create very sophisticated, very dense user interfaces that pack a lot of capabilities for users, so they don't have to keep loading pages after pages and stuff like that. So we're going to use these technologies for the mobile today, but do realize that they're used for both mobile and desktop web. Really, they're all, and you can intermix them from that standpoint here. We're also going to talk about the control bar. We may end up doing a little bit more on that next time before we do the packaging aspect, because it's a very deep one, but we want to kind of use it to begin with. So before I get into it, I want to just do a real quick refresher. I think most people understand these, but let's just make sure we understand. So think of a deck of cards, and each card has some content on it. So if you think about it, when you have a deck of cards, you can either lay them out on a table where they're, so let's say you're doing a draw, you're like going to put up 5 cards. So you lay them side by side. Well, that's the concept of a layout. When you talk about a panel layout, those are panel cards that are all shown at one time within this environment. Now, there's a couple other things about that. You can actually dynamically show and hide stuff. But for now, let's just talk about the fact that for panel layouts, the idea is that you're seeing multiple cards on the interface at one time. And that's really good for desktop, because you can create these really cool interfaces with, a list control, some details, some other data here. Sort of, if you're building a dashboard, this is the way you want to use it, because this allows you to create very sophisticated dashboard structures very easily. And what's nice is it's responsive. So if I'm using this on a big screen, it does all the sizing for me. If I use it on a small screen, it does sizing for me. Even if I use this on a mobile device, it will do stuff like take this card and put it below here and do some other things. It really tries to do all the hard work for you. Now, again, a panel layout is what is used when you're using multiple cards at one time. Today, we're going to focus on another one, which is called the Panel Navigator. So the idea there is, think about the idea of having a stack of cards. So let's say you just picked up the stack of playing cards, and then what you're doing is you're flipping over one, or going through them one by one. So what you're doing is shifting the view card into the Navigator view, and then you can shift them back and forth. And there's some different ways to do that we'll talk about today. But the Navigator is what we're going to use for mobile, and this is usually what you're using for mobile interfaces. In terms of, think of this as the screen. You have limited screen layouts, so you really can't put something this complex. Now, you could maybe on a tablet, and by the way, and we're not going to go in that today, there are cool tools that will actually detect what environment you're on and throw up the layout that makes sense for that environment. But since I'm really focusing this task manager for a mobile phone, so we're going to use what's called the Navigator to do that. And therefore, you're really only showing one piece of content at one time. And it has all the capabilities of a phone, meaning swipe gestures, all those things are built into it, so you don't have to worry about that at all. It handles it. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into our application now, and what we're going to focus on is using the Panel Navigator to take those components we've already built and then put them into a format that makes sense for a mobile device. So that I just want to make sure you understood the basis of sort of the representation of the user interface is the panel technology, which includes panel cards, which is sort of, think of it as a single set of content, and then panel layouts and panel navigators that allow you to then show how you want to represent one or more cards on an interface from that standpoint. So with that, before I jump in there, I don't know if there's any questions, but we'll throw that out, see if there's any questions out there.
We are ready to move on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's like, okay, yeah, let's get going. Let's move along here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and close this because I want to kind of save that one there in case I screw something up massively, although there's an easier way to handle that. So I'm going to go into my mobile one. And this is basically a repetition of it, but notice it gave me that error because I still have the JavaScript in here and there's an error in there. So I'm just going to highlight that and get rid of it. Come on, highlight. Okay, doesn't like that. There we go. I guess I have to go from the top down. Okay, so I can get rid of that. When I save it, you'll see there's no error. Basically what it was doing is it was looking at my JavaScript and seeing if there was any kind of errors in there before I saved it. So when I ran it, I didn't have a problem. So we're done there. So we're back to the controls. Same concept. You have your container one, which is your search area. You have your actual core list of tasks, and then your container, which handles the actual detail view. So the way we want to structure this is when I log in, the first thing I want to see is the tasks themselves and be able to interact with them. And then I'll want the ability to create a new one. I'll be able to, do a search on it. So we're going to kind of just build this up step by step. And this is often a really good kind of practice. You can start and do things incrementally, meaning you don't have to lay everything out at once unless you have a pure design in your head. But if you're trying to figure it out, you can kind of just start playing with it, see what you like and dislike, and off to the race you are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this mobile, because when I display it in working preview, I want it to represent that mobile device, because that's our target platform for our application here. So as I mentioned, I've got panel cards and panel layouts and panel navigator. As we said, we're going to do a panel navigator. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all of my controls here. So I'm highlighting, clicking and dragging, highlighting all the controls. And on the left-hand side, I'm going down here to the panels section. And this is where I have my different panel card implementation. Let me come back to something in a minute. I want to talk about quick panels, but let's not get off track here. I want to show you that, because that may help accelerate in your education on panels. Okay, so when I've done that, I've highlighted everything, and I want to use a panel navigator. So I'm going to click Panel Navigator. It's going to pop up a little message, and it says, do you want to insert a panel navigator? Yes or no? Yes, I do. And it's asking me if I want to do an open and closing tag, and the answer is yes, because you'll see, much like containers, they have open and closing to show what's within that content. Okay, so you'll see that now I have this green thing here called Panel Navigator. I've still got my content right here, and then I have my end, so everything is here. Now, very important, and this is what you're going to get used to when you start doing panels and other things. You'll notice that there are two red things to look at. One, there's this one right here called layout errors, and this one right here, which says layout error. So it actually gives you two indicators where there's a problem. There's something about this that the system doesn't like. And this is really nice and actually very powerful, because when you start doing more complicated UXs with a bunch of different stuff, you may insert something and inadvertently put it in the wrong place, and therefore it can't render it. So it tells you immediately, hey, slow down, I can't do that. So we can just go over here to layout errors, click that, and it brings this up and says, in this case, the first control after a panel navigator, this control right here, must be another panel navigator, a layout, or a panel card. Please fix that. And it gives you the actual control number 1 here. Now, this is simple because 1 is 1. But let's say you were like, ooh, what control is that? Well, if you right click on this white space and you go to, where is it? Is it on here? I think you can actually show, here's the menu. It's under menu. You can actually, where is it? Toggle line numbers. Okay, so I went to menu and I said toggle line numbers. And did it not do it? Wait, it should show me line numbers in there. Let's go. Let's try that again. Maybe I did it. Is it not showing that? Oh, it should show the line numbers. Maybe it's this version. I've got kind of a newer version I'm using. So, but that will put a number next to each control. And therefore, when you see the message here, you can go find that control number and put it from here. But in our case, it's number 1. But I just want to let you know it's right here. It's called toggle line numbers in controls display, and do that from there. Now, there's, by the way, a whole bunch of other hidden really cool stuff. I'm not going to go through here, but there are tons of really cool stuff. And we'll come back and talk some stuff about Alpha Shell later on our next one there. Okay, so I've got a problem here. It's basically saying you can't just have a bunch of controls inside of a navigator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight all this, and I'm going to put in a panel card. And again, same concept. I highlighted everything I needed, and then over here I selected panel card, and I can insert an open and closing panel card there. Okay, so you'll notice now that my errors are gone. I'm in great shape. I don't need to do that. Or, I've fixed it. I can save it. Now let's go ahead and do a working preview and see what it looks like. Well, doesn't look very much different yet. And that's for a reason, because the honest thing is that the panel cards, navigators, layouts are invisible controls. You don't see them. They merely dictate the layout of your interface here. So you see, in our case, we have one navigator and then one card in it. And if I do it, you notice it has like the behavior is already working because this is handling that. But you notice when I click back and forth, it just kind of bounces back because there's only one card. I can't go anywhere. That's all we do. But the neat thing about that is notice that the panel navigator takes care of all those drag. And I'm doing it with my mouse, but that would easily be with your finger from that standpoint there. So we have one panel card, or navigator with one panel card. Well, the reality is I want to use multiple panel cards to show certain things there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go down here to my end of my panel card here. And I can do one of two things. I can either click here to insert a panel card, or just to know a shortcut is you can say add panel card by right clicking, which I like because then it keeps my focus on it. And I can say panel card, and I can actually add multiple panel cards. But let's go ahead and just do it this way. We'll go panel card, and notice it's giving me an option. It can insert around that, which would be wrong. You'll get an error. You can insert before it or insert after it. Now notice that I'm inserting it after the panel card, but before the panel card panel navigator in. And so now you'll notice I have a new panel card here. It's inside my panel navigator, but there's no errors because everything's good, even though I don't have any controls in there. So I'm going to do a real quick preview just to show you. Go in here, and again, I don't see anything, but now notice if I drag this, there's a blank space because there is a second panel card. If I drag it again, I will see that I can go back and forth by dragging back and forth. And again, it handles all those pieces for it. So now, the general concept is you lay out the different panel cards with the different content, and then you can manage it from there. And I'm going to get into some of the nuances on controlling how people interact with it, but let's just go ahead. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to add one more panel card. I'm going to use the right click, add panel card, click OK. So now I have 3 panel cards. So I'm going to call this panel card, I'm going to call that PC. This is my nomenclature. You can call it anything you want, list, because I want in that panel card the list. Okay. And then in this panel card, I want PC detail, because I'm going to put my detail information in there. And then this one, I want to do it as PC search. And we'll do a simple search structure, but then we'll go from there. Okay. So PC search. So now I've given these names. And the reason I give them the names is later on when I start doing Action JavaScript to manage stuff, it's easier for me when I have names there versus random panel navigator 1. Well, what does that mean? PC card 1. What does that mean? So I really recommend when you put in panel cards, you kind of use your own naming convention to say what is content, what is the content within that. So I'm going to go ahead and now I want to kind of start rearranging stuff into their panel cards. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this container number 1, highlight all the fields here for the search area. And then I'm going to go to, I can do one thing. I can, what I like to do is then I click this little button here. It's kind of hard to see it, I'm sure, on there, but it's like a stack of blocks with a little arrow. And this is moving one or more items to a specific location. So if I click on that, it shows me what's highlighted, what's been selected. So as you can see, my container with that stuff there, but then it shows me all my other controls. So I can go down here, click on PC search and click OK. And it takes and moves those from that location to the other. So it's really fast to be able to reorient and move things around within your system. Same thing with detail. I'm going to take this container right here, and then I'm going to click this little move to selected location, go to PC detail, click OK, and now we have an updated interface. So let's go ahead and just take a look at what it looks like. So I'm going to go in the working preview. You'll see now all that's showing is my list control. Now I can go here. There's my detail. Notice one, and then I'll go to the last one, which is now my filter there. Okay. So very interesting is that notice one thing very important. When I click on here on that one, the system takes care of all the syncing, putting the data on the right fields and everything else. You'll notice I didn't add any code for that. So really the nice thing is once you kind of have the basic functioning of the list, you can focus more on user experience in terms of how people interact with it, how they enjoy it, what's best for them, and how to work it to make it look great. So you'll see there, okay? So those are those pieces here. So now what I want to do is start kind of cleaning this up and make it a little bit more of a realistic looking user interface. So the first thing I want to do is you'll notice here that if you look at almost any phone, you see there is an area at the top, which is a control bar. And in that, you can present a lot of information, add buttons, do other things there. It's currently missing, but I want to add that in. The other thing you'll notice is that this list right here is kind of, well, it's got ID. I really don't want that. And you'll notice it's kind of listed right here. It's not so good. So I want to do one other thing too. You'll notice how small my text is. Well, I purposely did that on our last presentation because this was going to just be something I saw on the screen. But I really would rather use this as a mobile. So I want this all to look a little bigger. So what I'm going to do is go into design. I'm going to go to properties, and I'm going to go back to my properties, and I have my style name. And this is where I can select any one of our pre-built, nice looking styles. You know what, for today, I always use Alpha Blue too. So let's do something crazy. Let's do indigo and see what indigo looks like. And we'll click OK. So I'm going to change the style of the coloring scheme, but you'll notice also it says use compact theme. That's what's making all those numbers small. And if you're using it for a desktop web, that is actually really kind of nice. But in my case, I want bigger text, I want bigger buttons, etc., because I'm on a mobile interface and I got a big fat finger and I need to make sure it looks pretty good and is easy to interact with it. So I'll go back into working preview. So you'll see now, taking up more space. It's a little bigger, a little easier to read. Go here, even these fields, these buttons are all bigger. And now I can focus on improving these pieces from here. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and add the control. Well, let's first focus on this and then I'll add the control. So you'll notice that it's kind of still hard to read. For one thing, it's creating this little box around it and it's got these headers. So first thing I want to do is I want to go back to my controls. I want to click on list tasks. Now you'll notice that inside panel card is purely just list tasks. That's the only field in there. So if I go over to the right, I can say fill container, click there, and now what it will do is it will zoom this out to fill that container. So if I go into this and do a working preview now, you'll see that it got rid of that line. And now it's starting to look like a mobile interface. And what's nice is that if you had more than that fit on the screen, it has the scroll up and scroll down behavior to be able to see those things. Another thing is I'm not big on this ID right here. So let's go to list of tasks. We can go to my list layout. We can remove that list layout, click OK, save it, and then go back into working preview. And now we're seeing, we got rid of that. We still see those things. Now, this is a grid orientation. That's it's nice. Like if you had a tablet, like even if I go to a horizontal, you'll see that it's, oh yeah, this looks great. And do realize what's cool about list controls is you can tell it to display one way when you're horizontal and way when you're vertical. I'm not going to go through that, but you have that ability to say, well, I want one layout when I'm horizontal, and then when I'm vertical, and when I'm horizontal, I want to go this because I've got all this room to see all this extra data here. So the other thing I want to do is I want to really focus on the vertical because that's where most people spend their time. So I can go into list of tasks, and then I can go to detail view and actually list layout here. And you'll notice that we're using a grid kind of structure here within it. And what you can do is you can change this to be able to use a different layout, which is more oriented towards a non-column. So the way we do that is, let's see, where is it? Column or where? I'm forgetting, it's been there. Let's go column. Okay, so I can get rid of things like column titles, etc., and be able to adjust that. I'll do that a little later. I want to really focus on a few other things here, and to a certain degree, it works out pretty good. But the search part is, I'm sorry, not search part, but the list property allows you in the layout here to create different layouts and be able to modify those so that they orient and look better in a mobile environment than there. But I want to I have a couple other things that I know kind of time's going by pretty quickly. I want to handle that before we get into it. So the other thing I want to do is that I want to take this container here, and you'll notice that when I ran it, it was kind of short or kind of squeezed. So I want to make this 100%. And then I'm sorry, I want to do that here. I want to make all these things 100%. Okay. Now those are the fields, but I also need to make the container be 100% because then that will force it to consume all of the space that's available on the screen. So it'll automatically lay it out to do that. So I can go in there and I can go right here, and you'll notice now, I now have a much nicer looking form here. Now, certain things like I don't want to have an ID there. I want to put in some labels so we can adjust that really quickly. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's go back to design, and I'm going to go here to ID. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to move this down to the bottom below the synchronize because I like to just keep things kind of focused and extraneous stuff out of the way. And then what I want to do is ID. I want to say hide this. So I can click a button over here and say hide it. So it'll still be on the screen, still be in the detail view used by the list, but nobody will see it. This one right here for name, what I want to do is I don't want to hide it, but I want to add in a label to it. So I'm going to scroll down here. And again, this is the area where just the more you use alpha, you'll get more comfortable with it. But you'll notice that over here for this field, you have the field label. And currently the position is none, which means it won't be shown. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say I want it to be above because I don't want to try and because I'm on a mobile, I don't want to have like half the screen taken over by the label. And what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and look at that and make sure that looks okay. Okay, so go here. See, I've got name and now it's there. And then my other two items here. So now I can go in here. And what's cool is since I've already done one, I could go into each of these and make that change. But all I have to do is click on the first one I modified that I like. I can click on position here. And then up here, you'll notice there's like an eyedropper. I can click that and then select my other two. You'll notice it's telling me, oh, for name, it's above. Select those two. It has now updated that parameter for me. It's sort of think of it as a formatting copy paste. Go into working preview. Go here, and now you'll see you have name details. Now, I'd probably want to change the text there. You just do that very easily by going to the control, going to the label, and saying, like, for instance, name. And then there, do the same thing for details. There's no really way to copy paste this unless you wanted the same exact text. And then priority is priority. Okay, now we're having fun. So we've got that kind of laid out, but there's a few things I want to do. As I mentioned before, which is very important, in most mobile apps, you don't just see this. I mean, you can see it. Now you have those nice things and those pieces here. So what I want to do is have what's called an area up top to display to the user a header bar kind of scenario. So the way we do that is you'll notice we have Panel Navigator, Panel Card, and Panel Card. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go here to Panel Card PC List, and I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say put in a panel header. And it's going to ask me, do I want to include a control bar? And the answer is yes. And we'll go into control bars a little bit more in a few minutes here. So I'm going to say yes. Okay. So you'll notice now that you've added onto this panel card this header area, and inside this header area, you have a single control called control bar. And we'll talk about the importance about control bar, but before there used to be like 20 or 30 controls in this area, which was crazy, and we solved that. Well, you'll notice something interesting. List task still says fill container, but that's just from outside of the panel header. So I didn't break anything by doing this. It just basically creates this area at the top. This will fill up the rest of the screen. So let's go ahead and look at the working preview. And in a moment, it'll re-render. And now you'll see I have an area up here. It's giving me an error message saying control bar not defined. Don't worry about that. We'll go to that in a few minutes. But everything, it's taking care of that. And watch what happens when I go to horizontal. It takes care of laying all this stuff out for you. So you don't have to worry about it. And in fact, the control bar can also understand if it's horizontal versus vertical and like show and hide things. I mean, all that's built into the technology. So the one thing I do want to show you though is that I'm going to go back to vertical. watch when I go and switch over to the detail view. Well, wait a minute, it disappeared. And that's not good. You want that control bar to be right there. So if I go back to design, I can do one of two things. I can actually duplicate this control bar, or what I can do is move this control bar up to here in the panel navigator. Now, what that means is that this control bar now is at the very, very top. So when I run it, it's going to show. Notice at the top, it has a nice flow where it just stays at the top, and you see the control bar is always there. And that's the preferred solution. Now, there's a tricky part about this that we'll talk about in more detail. We may have to do a little bit more layout stuff next time around because it's very rich. But when you go from this view to this view, you may want that control bar to change. Now, what's nice is control bars can do that. But for this demo, I'm going to kind of brute force it. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to take this control bar and I'm going to move it down into there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to take this control bar. And again, the preferred method before I do this is to have one control bar, and inside the control bar have multiple layouts. And when you move from panel card to panel card, you can tell it to show different layouts. That's much more efficient. It's easier to manage, but a little bit more complex. And I don't want to spend too much time on that part. I really just want to kind of show you what it looks like and just be a little bit more quote unquote hard coded. And again, up to you on how you use it. So I'm going to go, and there is another effect I'll show you in a moment. So then I'll go ahead and click here. I'm going to highlight my panel header and control bar, and I'm going to duplicate the selected controls. It's going to tell me I have to change the naming. And so it's renamed it. It's created a second panel header. I'm now going to use the arrow buttons to move it down into my detail area. Save this. And we'll go to working preview. Okay, so you see the control bar there and control bar here from that standpoint. Now, the two things by putting two control bars, you can see that before this always stayed static. So it kind of felt a little better. This looks like one page to another. So that's another reason why you want to use a single control bar. But again, I don't want to spend too much time on that today just because, excuse me, it's a little more involved to set that up. So one thing that's going on is that it's saying it's not defined. So let's go in and define that control bar. So the two things we're going to do here is we're going to define the control bars. I'm going to add a little navigation item to here, and then we'll probably wrap that up for today. And then we can kind of continue a little bit more. I need to go, I realized more work than we can do in a single session. So first thing I'm gonna do is go to this control bar here. I'm gonna open it up, and this is my control bar. And this is, as you can see, a lot. I mean, control bars they're very, very rich components because they do a whole bunch of really cool things. And there's actually great documentation online. And in fact, when you open this up, you can click here for the control bar user guide or the API documentation, and it'll show you all the cool things you can do with it. But I'm going to keep it simple. What I want to do is on my first control bar, I just want to have a title at the top saying my task manager. So first thing I'm going to do is go here to items. I'm going to add a control bar item, and you'll notice that there's a whole bunch of types of them. There's HTML, title, buttons, button list, disclosure. Again, tons of stuff, but I want HTML title. I'm going to go ahead and just leave the name here and click OK. And you'll notice now I have a control bar item there, and then I can group them, but I can then go ahead and go in here and just say action list. Let's just call it action list. So now I have action list. It's HTML title. So I've created the item. Now, the important thing to understand, much like this, is that you create the items much like you create controls in this environment, and then you need to tell the control bar where that item goes. And that's where we get to control bar layout. So I've added this item, but it's not going to show up yet because I have to go to control bar layout. And then you'll notice I don't have any layouts yet. So I can add a layout. I'm going to go ahead and call this default. I like to call it default because that's the default one that shows here. Now notice I could add multiple layouts, and that's why I'm saying what's cool about the control bar is you can have one control bar at the top and have a default, like you create one for the list, one for the detail, one for the search, and when you move from panel to panel, you can tell it, oh, do me a favor, show this control bar, and it's very slick. Now that I've added my layout here, I want to add a line onto that layout because think of it as the head section. I'm going to add a line on here, and you'll see that it goes before, middle, and after. Now, why is it saying before, middle, and after, not left, right, and middle? Because depending on how you orient your phone, it may be different. It could be vertical. You can actually have control bars be vertical. There's other tricks there. But I'm just going to add into the middle my HTML title. So now I'm saying for this layout, take this one control and put it here. And that's where if I have multiple items, I don't have to show them all on a single layout. I can show like, here's my layout for the list. Here's my layout for the detail and do it from there. And then I can see right here, here's a preview of it. And you notice when that preview here, I can actually select a size and say, oh, what do it look on there? And so it kind of tells you, you can adjust this, see what it looks like. So it allows you to immediately look at sort of the size and how it may work from there and put it on there. Now that doesn't change the behavior. The behavior is this will stretch to match the interface or the information on the screen. So let's go ahead and click save. Let's go back here. Okay, so now I've got my control bar. Instead of saying not set up, it says, oh, action list. And it's got a nice little thing there. I can have more controls. I can put icons. I can do all that stuff here. Now, if we go over here, we have control bar not defined. So what I really want on this is that when I'm on this screen, and we'll come back to this in a bit, when I click on a item here or select it, I want it to automatically go over here. So we'll cover that in a minute. But let's start by just saying, you know what? I want a little icon here that when I'm on here, I can click here and it will take me over to here. Now, granted, I can swipe back and forth, but I'm going to want to not allow them to swipe because I want to kind of control the user experience to have them kind of guided through it. So let's do this. Let's add a button and let's add an action to that button. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to go ahead and add the button to control bar number 2. So I'm going to click on here. I'm going to go to items. Remember, that's where I create my items. Notice there's none in here because I'm in the other control bar. So I'm going to select a button. I'm going to click OK. There's the name. So I'm going to call it button return because I like to give it nice names. Okay. Now I can go ahead and I'll talk about this in a moment, but is this a special button type? So, oh yeah, let's use the set active panel. So I can actually dictate click events, and then in my click events actions here, put in little JavaScript to do that, but I don't have to do that. That's when it gets a little more sophisticated. But on here, what I'd like to do is when they click on this, I want to use the special action. Where'd it go? Button return, where did I put it there? Oh yeah, right here. I want to say set the active panel, and then the active panel would be, let's see, which panel? Where's the, okay, target panel here. I want to go back to my list. So it's going to write all the JavaScript for me. I don't have to do that. Now, again, this is a very special type. That's a lot of them are this way. But if you want to, you could set it as none and then use your actions here to produce. And you can use a combination of both at the same time. It's pretty cool stuff from there. Now, the other thing I want to do is right now, this is just text. So what I'd rather do is instead of showing text on the screen, I want to have an image only. And then I'm going to go to button name. Let's go, where is it? Icon here. I'm going to click there. I'm going to use SVG. Highly recommend. You can use other ones. You can use your own, but I'm going to use SVG. And I'm just going to go, let's see, right. Is it, nope, left. And you could use anything else you want there, but I'm going to go ahead and use this button right here. And that's kind of universal for navigation between it. Okay, so I've created my item. I've made it a button because then it will have interaction. I have told it to use the special button type because I don't want to write any code, and I've told it what icon, but I need to do something. I need to go to my control bar layout because it won't show up anywhere. I add my layout. I'm going to call this default also. That's the default for this one. And I'm going to add a line and I'm going to put it right here. So I'm going to look in the before. I'm going to click button return, click OK. Notice that it has that right there. Click OK. Let's save it and let's check it out. So I go in. I have my first control bar here. Now I have my second control bar, and notice that it's a button. When I click on it, it takes me back. It takes me back. Pretty simple stuff from there. Now, before I go to the next step, and we're going to enhance on this, is that I want to, when I click on an item here, I want to show it. I don't want them to be forced to manually do that. So how we do that is the following: is we don't do that in the control bar. We're going to do that within the list control itself. So the first thing I want to do, and I highly recommend you do this, is that I always like to put all action JavaScript at the sort of the UX level. So I'm going to go to Action, JavaScript Actions here. I'm going to add a new action, and it's going to say show, let's call it show detail. This will show detail record. And I click OK. It says the new action has been created, but I haven't edited it. It's kind of there. So I click on here. And by the way, I do like to put in a nice name and a description, because after a while, you're going to have a bunch of these. Just it grows with time. So I'm going to go show detail. I'm in my action JavaScript builder. I want to say add action panel, because we're going to do a panel action here. And I want to set the active panel to be PC detail. So basically, this is going to write the JavaScript for me to actually move to the panel PC detail, and click OK. There we go. So we now have panel actions set active panel. And so now this is kind of cool. One thing that's important about doing this is that for me, I'm going to be using it on my first one here, but I could reuse this on other buttons and other things in the interface. And therefore I can have one single piece of code or single action that we'll use to cross all of those. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So now I want to do the following. When someone clicks on a list of tasks, it's going to take me to the detail. And notice it's done all the wiring below for the actual display and editing of the data. So I'm going to go in here. I can do two things. I could add in a field an icon and have it use that icon, and that would be okay. But the reality is you would probably just want to touch the actual item itself. So instead of adding a field, like I click here, add like a static image and put in like an editor, what I want to do is I'm going to go down here to list events. I can get that here. By the way, if I want, I can go to list properties, scroll down, and here are my list events here, like on select, on click, etc. So there's two ways to get to these here. You can either click on list properties, scroll down, or click on list events, and it's going to be over here. You'll see there's stuff here. So I'm going to go ahead, and since I'm already here, we're going to do it here. Now, I want to do it. There's on select and on click. And on click is a little deceptive, because that also means when someone touches something. So it obeys touch rules. On select means when I select a row, and that can be done either by the user or programmatically. So you kind of have to decide when that wants to happen. I kind of want to force it so that when they touch it, that's when this will trigger it. So in the list control, I'm saying when a row is on clicked, I want you to run this action JavaScript. So I click on here. I can go up here to Action JavaScript, say insert code to run Action JavaScript. By the way, I can automatically create it here if I want, and that brings up this editing interface. So I like to go here first, but I could have just done it here. The benefit of this will show up both clicking here and there. So I'm just going to say run, insert code to run that action, and I've got my action right there. Click OK, and it puts in the little JavaScript that needs to do the actual action there. So I click OK. So now on my list, I've created my action that will take me to the detail, and you'll see on click OK, and click save. And let's go ahead and do working preview. Everything looks the same, but now I can click this and notice it immediately takes me over. I can click here, and notice when I'm clicking, it's doing two things. It's selecting this row, it's firing that JavaScript, and then it's updating this detail view to be editing that record there. And as I mentioned before, everything else works the same, including synchronization, and off to the race on that. Let's actually look at, we go to horizontal. Let's go into this one. Let's edit that, save it, synchronize it, go back, and now it's written there. So I need to stop at this point because I want to ask some questions. I know I've taken a lot of time. The two things I really want to finish up is two things. I want to show you a little bit more about the search, but also how you can improve this with some icons and some actions that are nice to be used there. And then also when I go in here, I kind of want to clean this up so that it shows a little nicer because, and also I don't want to have to click synchronize when I make changes, and we'll explain that next time. They're just small little tweaks, but we'll do that to kind of clean up before we get into the deployment aspect on our next event. So with that, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you, see if there's any questions on that, or if we have time, see if there's any questions for other things there.
Excellent. So no, we don't really have questions, which is great. Actually, I think you went through pretty smoothly. Or people are very confused. That's always the two.
Or, some of this, I think a lot of the people have already probably kind of experienced and have a feel for this. So
Yeah, no, I think this is a very good review though. So no questions on that. Someone did ask earlier, is it possible to create a custom layout for that live preview mobile app that we're looking there? Right now it's set to iPhone 6. And the answer is no. I mean, you might dig around in the folders and see places where you see those graphics stored, but they're actually encoded into the software itself. So
but
that
let
is
me,
like
go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so that's something that we're
But
gonna
here's a cool thing. If I
All
click
right.
remote test,
Yeah.
and I need to start the server because it's going to use this here, and you need to have your device and this on the same network.
Yep.
Like
On the same LAN.
feel free to scan this, but since you can't reach my network, it's not going to do a whole lot of anything. But this is really powerful.
The call is coming from inside the house. Yeah.
I know. Okay, where is it? Let's go. Oh, I think I have to re-hit it because I had to restart there. Okay, there we go. So what you can do is I want to do a full preview, and this is really handy because of this.
Yeah.
You could send an email with the URL. I'm going to display the QR code. A couple different things we can do here. And then I'm scanning that. I'm putting it on my phone, and you can't see it here. But what's going on here is now I'm seeing this page running on my phone, and it's actually interacting with the server. So all of those capabilities, and just to show you, I kind of went fast on that. Is that let me go back here real quick, full preview. So let's go ahead and give it an IP address, show the IP address. Okay, this notice you'll be not shows the QR code with that, opens it up. And I know I wish I could show you this. It's so cool, but it's rendered.
Dan, we'll have to take your word for it, but it is.
I know, you just have to trust me.
You know what? Everyone should give that a try if they haven't done remote test. Actually,
but this is now showing on my phone. So even I've got like I've actually got a 13. I'm on a 13, and I'm seeing it. And what's great is I can scroll, I can touch, I can edit, I can save. And what it's doing is it's connecting through my Wi-Fi to this machine and acting as a way to do that.
And that's really a much better test. I mean, these here are sort of a cheat. Well, they are pictures of the phone, and all we do is constrain it to a certain pixel height and width based on the specifications for that phone. Versus running it directly on the phone, you could see, hey, how does it really work on a phone? So that's
and it's cool. And you can switch your phone around. You'll see it automatically navigate. Oh, it's really fun.
Cool beans. Awesome.
Cool.
Good
question. Thank you, whoever that was, can allow us to talk about that.
I think that's about it. It looks like people are enjoying the session, which is
terrific. Good. I'm glad. I know it's a little one-on-one for a lot of people. Sorry.
Yeah. So I've forgotten to take a look at the schedule, but when are you on next, Dion?
I think it's a ways away. I'd have to go look at it. I know. But we could bring that. I could do the next one in 2 weeks so that we kind of close the loop on this. But let's kind of target 2 weeks, and then we can, because I'd like to kind of close this out. What we will be doing is a few more cleanup things on this, and then we're going to be talking about deploying it, how you can deploy it. That's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, great. So next week, just so you know, I will be covering the controls that you find in the UX. Last week we covered all the different components that aren't the UX. And this time we'll be covering just the UX and the various components, the data controls, the panels, containers, and so on, to give you a nice overview of the stuff that you can put into your applications. So Dion, thanks very much for presenting today. Very much appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Good presentation.
Yeah, I had a great time. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, wonderful. If you do have further questions, of course, send them to guides, guides@alphasoftware.com. Till then, we hope to see you at our next Wednesday webinar. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.